Okay, so back end out of the way, ready to go. Let's make sure it starts up. And it does. Looking good. Now let's go ahead and create, or at least start up our front end as well, so that we can wire up our front end to hit those new endpoints. So let's go ahead and create a new terminal. And head in there. And look into our UI repo. Okay, looks good. And let's go ahead and npm install all of the dependencies. Now, while we wait to do that, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to be creating here. We're going to be creating two new components in our project. The first is going to be the recover component. So it's going to be called recover. And another one called password reset. Password reset, just like so. Inside there, they'll probably both need CSS files, so password reset.css and new file recover.css, and we're going to give them basically the exact same styles that we gave to our registration and login components, but let's just code them from scratch so we get a feel for what we're doing here. Now in the recover.js file, well actually we should probably just at least start the repo so we know that things are working as expected. npm start. Let's wait for it to get set up, ready to go. Make sure things are working well. Okay, once it feels ready. And it is. We go there, cool, looks like it's still working. Fantastic, this is good. So in our situation, we want to be able to go to the recover route, and we want to have a form here that will allow us to recover our account. To do that, we're going to head in here and let's build a little form. We'll say import use state from React, import link from React router DOM, import API client from services API client, and let's import the CSS file, recover.css, and let's export default a function called recover. We'll return a div with a class name equal to recover, and inside there we'll have a div with a class name equal to card, which I think how we did it in the registration form. Let's see. Yeah, sign up card, cool. We'll do the same thing basically here. We could even copy this whole thing if we want, but let's just write it out. We have an H2 that says account recovery, and let's set some state in here. Let's add a few things in state. We know we're going to need an email field equals use state. We know we're going to need an error field, just in case there's some errors. We know we're going to need a, let's just call this message, which will represent the message from the server on how things went, and an is processing flag, just so we know whether or not we are currently making a request to the API or not. And then below that, let's go ahead and use that here inside, okay. Inside the JSX, we'll say if there's an error, let's render a span with a class name equal to error and render the error. Otherwise, let's put a little break tag in there so I have to style that nicely. And then let's say if there's a message, just, I don't know, render the message. Nothing fancy there. I don't know, we could give it like a span. Let's do that, span, class name equals message, because that's nicer. Otherwise, we're going to render a div with a class name equal to form, and that form is going to have a paragraph tag in it that says enter the email address associated with your account. And then a break tag, because I don't want to style it, and then a div with a class name. You know what, let's copy this from the register. There's an email one in here. Yeah, let's just copy this right here. So that's basically the exact same thing. No reason to type that whole thing out if we know exactly what's coming. And, oh yeah, I guess we do have a few differences here. We don't need this email error, because if they enter an invalid email, fine, so be it. Let's say this is just email, and when there's a change, we'll take in the event. We'll just do it right in here, and we'll say set email event.target.value. And that should be the beginning of all we need. Then I guess we could probably put a button in there to submit. So let's put a button that has a class name equal to btn. We'll say if it's disabled only when it's processing, so the user doesn't click it multiple times on accident. We'll say on click, we'll handle on submit, and then we'll say if it is processing, we'll render the loading text inside the button. Otherwise, we'll render recover account. Now, this handle on submit we haven't done yet, so let's go ahead and do that next. Actually, let's go ahead and put a nice little footer here, just in case, just for the user. And let's just say if they already have an account, or they remember their account, or whatever, we'll just log in here. Something like that. Log in here. And I think this is similar to what we saw in register, right? Something like that. Yeah, almost the exact same. We could have just copied that too. Cool. Now this handle on submit, we want to build that out. So we'll say const handle on submit equals an async function. Now inside here we want to do a few things. We want to first set is processing to true at the beginning and false at the end, no matter what. And then we want to, let's just make sure that when this triggers again, we set the error to null at the beginning. And if there's not an email, we will set the error to email required. Just they have to type something in there. And then we'll set is processing to false, and we'll return early. Otherwise, we will await, or let's say const data error equals await API client.recover account. And we'll send an email. If there's an error, set the error with the error. If there is data.message, set the message of data.message. Now, we haven't actually added this recover account method to the API client, so let's do that as well. So in services, API client, let's come in here and let's create a new one. And we'll say async recover account, and we're passing in the email, and we will return await this.request, and the endpoint should be auth recover. The method should be post, and the data should be an object with a key equal to email. I think I have to look at that backend again, but let's just check. Well, you know what? Let's try it out. Now, once we've done that, we then need to add this route to our app.js file. Or actually, let's export it first. So we'll say export default as recover from recover, just like that. So then in our app.js file, we have an error here. I did something wrong. I apologize. Recover.css. You cannot find, oh yeah, / excuse me. There we go. Cool. And then in app.js, let's import this recover component, and let's add it as an additional route. Just like that. So doing so should work. However, we have no styles there yet. So let's just copy all of the styles from register here. I guess I call it sign up, whatever. And then let's replace all of that .signup with .recover. Just like that. That should work, right? Hopefully. Let's find out. Let's save this. Let's go back here. Let's click refresh. Beautiful. So now we have this recovery form here. It says enter the email address associated with the account. Let's enter the email, see how it works. We'll do lebron@james.io, and we'll click recover account. Oh, not found. Okay, cool. Maybe I did something wrong. Oh, it looks like, interesting, undefined. Okay, that is not what I was intending. Let's see what's up here. Go into API client. What did I mess up? Oh, I said endpoint. Endpoint. Beautiful. Just like that. Okay, now hopefully it works. Let's try that again. LeBron@james.io, recover account. Ah, great. If your account exists in our system, you should receive an email shortly, which means, I think, that worked correctly. If we take a look at our backend, we see that it got the request. And if we take a look at our network tab, we can see that the recover sent the email and got a response of the message of, if your account exists in our system, you should receive an email shortly. Awesome. Now, let's do two things. Let's first pop open a new terminal, and let's take a look at pSQL. And let's say connect to rate my setup advanced. Cool. And let's select all from users. Okay, this looks right. Cool. Looks like we don't have a LeBron James in there at the moment. So it did send back a response letting us know, hey, if the account exists, we'll send out an email, but it didn't send out an email. Now, the other thing, and that's also why it didn't trigger here, if we look at our actual routes itself, it did not trigger in this auth.js file the email service that send password reset email. It didn't trigger this at all. That's because the user didn't exist in our database. Now, if we were to go back here and we were to use a user that does exist in our database, let's see what happens. Okay, thank you. Let's use the person@person.person email. Cool. Let's go in here and let's refresh this. And let's try it again with an email that we know does exist in our system. person@person.person. Let's click recover account. Okay. Error is not defined. Cool. So I have an error in there somewhere. Let's see what's up. Ah, interesting. Okay. And this is great. This is actually establishing something that we should have seen earlier. If we actually try to send an email, is that the from address does not match a verified sender identity. This is SendGrid letting us know, it's like, hey, we can't actually send emails for you until we know that you have a verified sender identity. Who you're sending it from, you verified all the information, and we can be sure that you're not just spamming people from a random sender identity. So we're going to handle that later on, but I'm glad that we got this error here so we can see what it is and we know what's happening. Now, let's actually, this one right here, this error is not defined. I think we have that messed up somewhere. So if I go to auth.js, next error, I think we have this, so it's a error, something like error is not defined, which is not what we want. So maybe we have a problem either in our model. Somewhere in here we have an error, which is where it's looking for ERR, and I probably did error instead of ERR. That happens a lot, so we'll go ahead and find that in a little bit. But for the time being, oh, you know what? It's almost certainly in our email service here. So let's see if we can see ERR. Okay. Equals, yeah, there we go. So I tried to put it there. So let's just put that to ERR. That's why it's usually good to standardize that whole thing so that it works correctly. But in this case, hopefully now, if we try this again, we say, cool, so it works. It says your account exists in our system. You should receive an email shortly, which is what we want. But it also says, hey, we cannot send emails for you until you've verified the sender identity. But if we were to actually go now into pSQL, and we were to run select all from users again, we should see this person@person.person now has a password reset token stored in the database and an expiration date of when we can use it, which is perfect. It's exactly what we want. So in the next video, let's go ahead and use that password reset token to reset this user's password.